One night, quite a while ago, I was invited to dinner at a friend's house who happened to be the nephew of Craig McCracken, the creator of Powerpuff Girls. The party was pleasant, and I was in for a surprise when Mr. McCracken himself was one of the guests. As a teenage girl, I was absolutely obsessed with the show. I would hog the TV for the premiere of every episode and yell at my younger brothers if they so much as said a word before the commercial break. Being a somewhat moody, spunky teen, Buttercup was always my favorite of the three girls. I loved her sarcasm and her edginess. Upon meeting Mr. McCracken, I had told him what a big fan I was and that I was ecstatic to meet him, but he seemed very uninterested and was speaking in a vague, rushed tone, no matter what we were speaking of. I supposed it was because all the show's fans could be quite annoying, so I backed off. Somewhere a bit later into the night, Mr. McCracken left hurriedly, not noticing that he left a small envelope with a single Dix inside. I looked around quickly before taking the Dix, thinking of the possibility of this being another cartoon invented by the genius behind the Powerpuff Girls. After the party was over, I rushed home to see what this mysterious Dix had in store for me. With my hands trembling, I lifted the shiny Dix from the envelope, and my heart fluttered with delight when I saw that the DVD had Buttercup.avi written on it in purple Sharpie. Buttercup, as I said before, had always been my favorite, and I was incredibly anxious to watch this episode, that for one reason or another had not been released, but left next to a chair at a dinner party. I put the Dix into my DVD player and it started instantly. No title screen, no credits, nothing. The episode started off oddly. The colors had been dulled down to an almost sepia tone, and the house looked all wrong. The windows were busted out and the walls looked dirty. There were small reddish-brown footprints going up the wall to the middle upstairs window. Confused and creeped out, I continued watching. The camera zoomed into the house, which looked even worse than the outside. Professor Utonium was sitting on the floor, sobbing. He looked up into the camera, his eyes looking too realistic for even the most advanced animation at the time, and had this horrid, pained expression on his usually smiling face. "Buttercup, what have you done? What have you done to your sisters? Why? Why? He sounded generally like someone that had lost everything, and my heart hurt for him. Behind him sat the corpses of Blossom and Bubbles, horribly mangled. Blossom was missing one eye, and photorealistic blood dripped from her empty socket. Her limbs were broken and twisted in unnatural angles. Her heart had been cut out and laid beside her, and blood stained her pink dress where her heart had been. Bubbles was killed in a similar fashion, except for the fact that both eyes were missing and shoved down her throat, and her legs torn off. Disturbed more than I had been in my entire life, maybe, I began to feel sick to my stomach, but I knew I had to keep watching. The camera then cuts to Buttercup, whose eyes were also realistic, like Professor Utonium's. She had an unusually heartless, bitter look in those all too realistic green eyes and a twisted smile on her face. She was stained with blood from head to toe. She tilted her head up very slowly and a maniacal laugh left her mouth, ringing through the room in my mind.
"Didn't you see it coming, Professor? I'm sure all of our adoring fans did."
She spat, sounding disgusted at the word adoring fans.
"They were so annoying, with their constant happiness, their love of always being in the spotlight, always being nice, and good, and perfect. I hated it. For years it disgusted me, but not anymore, Professor, not anymore."
Professor Utonium continued sobbing, and the horrid sound got louder and louder until a green streak with a silver glint flew across the screen. The professor's disembodied head then flew at the camera, his eyes staring directly at me for the remainder of the video before cutting to black. Thinking it was over, I went to turn off the TV, but I stopped when I heard the sounds of screaming and singing. Blossom and Bubbles' screams were quiet, as Buttercup's voice was loudly singing,
"Hush, little babies, don't say a word. Mama's gonna kill you and make you burn. And if those corpses just don't burn, Mama's gonna bury you beneath the ferns.
Though the words were cheesy, the sound of Buttercup singing and the eyes of her and the professor still haunt my dreams. And that, my fellow minions, was Buttercup.avi, a Powerpuff Girls creepypasta made by Anonymous. Okay, this creepypasta of sorts was not a very good one. Let's begin with the protagonist of this story. The protagonist is very cliched and also a thief for grabbing that DVD instead of returning it to Greg McCracken himself. Like, does everybody in Lost episode creepypastas back then have to be a thief? It is so cliche, even when it was made. Even as a teenager, the girl should have known better that stealing has consequences. Most of the spelling and grammar is good, but there are some errors in it, like a little misspelling and that's it. Not really a problem there. Now let's get into the Lost episode itself, or as we should all say what it is, a short film. There is nothing indicating that the episode is starting except when the protagonist puts in the dicks. There is blood and gore everywhere. The professor is crying because 2 of his daughters are dead. Very reasonable in the story, so reasonable. The professor and Buttercup have realistic eyes, for some weird reason. Buttercup has a hatred-filled rant about the fans for some reason. I think we need more context for that situation because if she's talking about the 4th wall, well, that thing is broken by the end anyway, so yeah. Buttercup also talks about being done with everything and is mad at her sisters and the professor for whatever reason. At the end of the episode of short film, there is an indication that Buttercup has a knife to kill the professor with. One problem with that is that she has superpowers and her sisters have superpowers, I guess. They have superpowers, for God's sakes. Superpowers. It's not that hard to say, oh, she fought them with her move or whatever. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that situation. The professor's disembodied head with realistic eyes also flies towards the screen and is obviously supposed to scare us, which it's not really that scary, people. It's not really that scary. This obviously disturbs the protagonist because she is a teenager. And the song at the end was actually kind of funny and cheesy at the same time. Like the part with Mama, the mama will be buried beneath the ferns. That was kind of funny. I guess Buttercup just really snapped that day, and honestly, I could see that happening. Buttercup one day just snapping is a good concept for a creepypasta, which leads me into wanting to remake this. I want to remake this into a better creepypasta because of the concept alone. You'll see me posting about it in the next few weeks or something like that. So I'll keep you guys updated. The rating of this story is a 4.5 out of 10 for having a concept like this, but the story is cliched as hell from the start to the end. Not really a good story at all. Keep in mind, this is my personal opinion about the story. Please do not harass the original author and be civil if he is still around. Also, look out for more videos like this. And I am Lord Phantom. And before I forget, thank you for 150 subscribers. That really means a lot to me, guys. That really means a lot to me. Thank you. I will see you again, my fellow minions. I'll be back very soon.